My name is Sophia Thompson, and at 68 years old, I thought I understood my son James better than anyone else in this world. When that beautifully wrapped box of cookies arrived for my birthday last month, I had no idea it would cause such heartache. I casually mentioned giving them to his mother-in-law, Linda, during our phone call the next day. His explosive reaction shook me to my core. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you are watching from and tap that subscribe button. Family is complicated. That is something I have learned over my 68 years on this earth. But I always thought my relationship with my son James was the exception. We had been through so much together, just the two of us against the world for so long. James is my only child, now 40 years old, with a beautiful family of his own. I raised him alone after my husband Robert died of a heart attack when James was only 10. The memory of telling my little boy that his father was never coming home still brings tears to my eyes, even after all these years. Those early years were so difficult. I worked 2 jobs to keep our little family afloat. During the day, I worked as a secretary at an insurance company, and in the evenings I waited tables at a local restaurant. My parents helped watch James when they could, but they lived 3 hours away, so most of the time it was just us. I still remember how James would wait up for me no matter how late my shift ran. I would find him asleep on the couch with his school books open, determined to show me his homework when I got home. He was such a serious child, taking on responsibilities far beyond his years. Sometimes I wonder if I robbed him of his childhood by leaning on him too much during those hard times. Despite our financial struggles, I was determined to give James every opportunity. I saved every extra penny for his college fund, often going without new clothes or small luxuries for myself. When James showed an aptitude for science and mathematics in high school, I found a way to pay for extra tutoring and summer programs. All those sacrifices paid off when James was accepted to a prestigious engineering program with a partial scholarship. I was so proud watching him accept his diploma 4 years later, the first in our family to graduate from college. He quickly secured a position at a respected engineering firm and began climbing the corporate ladder. As James built his career, our relationship evolved. He no longer needed my daily guidance, and I had to learn to step back and let him make his own decisions, even when I disagreed with them. There were growing pains, certainly. James became more independent, sometimes forgetting to call for weeks at a time, absorbed in his new adult life. Then Allison came into the picture. 8 years ago, James brought home a beautiful, confident woman with a sharp intellect and quick wit. I tried to be welcoming. I truly did. But I worried that she was too career-focused, too ambitious to prioritize family the way I believed she should. James was completely smitten, and within a year they were engaged. The wedding was lovely, though smaller than I would have preferred. That was my first encounter with Linda, Allison's mother. She is only 3 years older than me, but acts as though she belongs to an entirely different generation. Linda and her husband Walter have considerably more money than I ever had, and she never misses an opportunity to subtly highlight the difference in our circumstances. From the beginning, there was an unspoken competition between us. Who would host the holiday gatherings, whose family traditions would be passed down to the grandchildren? Linda always seemed to win with her larger house and fancy dinner parties. James and Allison usually spent Christmas at her house, while I received them for a quick visit the day after. When Emma was born 7 years ago, followed by Noah 2 years later, the competition intensified. Linda showered the children with expensive gifts and elaborate outings to the zoo or amusement parks. I offered homemade treats and simple pleasures like feeding ducks at the local pond or planting vegetables in my small garden. The children seemed to enjoy both, but I always wondered if they preferred the excitement their other grandmother provided. My retirement 3 years ago has been an adjustment. After decades of working and being surrounded by colleagues, the quiet of my small house sometimes feels oppressive. I joined a book club and volunteer at the library twice a week, but loneliness creeps in during the long evenings. I find myself calling James more often than I should, hungry for updates about the grandchildren or details about their daily lives. As my 68th birthday approached, I tried not to have expectations. James and his family had visited for my birthday last year, bringing a homemade cake and spending the afternoon with me. But this year, James had mentioned a big project at work, and Allison was preparing for an important case. She works as an attorney at a large firm downtown. Another point of pride for Linda, who mentions her daughter's career at every opportunity. I remember past birthdays when James was little. He would wake me with breakfast in bed-burnt toast and orange juice, so proud of his creation. As he grew older, he became more thoughtful with his gifts, saving his allowance to buy me a simple necklace when he was 15 that I still wear on special occasions. But things change when children start their own families. They have new priorities, new traditions to establish. I understand this logically, but emotionally, it has been difficult to accept that I am no longer the center of James' world. It hurts to see him so integrated into Allison's family, seemingly more comfortable in their large, beautiful home than in my modest living room filled with his childhood memories. I tried not to dwell on these thoughts as my birthday approached. I would celebrate quietly, perhaps treat myself to dinner at my favorite restaurant. James would call the grandchildren, would sing to me over the phone, and that would be enough. It had to be enough. The morning of my birthday dawned bright and clear. I took my time getting ready, putting on a nice blouse and slacks, even though I had no plans to see anyone. There is something about making an effort with your appearance that lifts the spirits, a lesson my own mother taught me long ago. I checked my phone several times that morning, waiting for James to call. By 11, there was still no word from him. I told myself he was busy, that he would remember later in the day. To distract myself, I began preparing a special birthday lunch, a small roast chicken with my favorite sides. The doorbell rang just as I was putting the chicken in the oven. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and hurried to answer it, not expecting anyone. A delivery man stood on my porch, holding a beautifully wrapped box tied with a silver ribbon. My heart lifted at the sight. I thanked the man and brought the package inside, admiring the elegant wrapping paper covered in delicate silver stars. The attached card simply read, "Happy birthday, Mom. Love, James and family." No mention of being sorry they couldn't visit or explanation for the gift, but I was touched nonetheless. I carefully unwrapped the box, saving the beautiful paper out of habit. Inside, I found an array of cookies, each one perfectly formed and decorated. There were chocolate chip cookies, shortbread, with a swirl of raspberry, and what looked like the ginger snaps my mother used to make when I was a child. They were arranged on a bed of tissue paper, clearly homemade and packed with care. My first instinct was to try one immediately, but something held me back. They looked too perfect to eat alone on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. Perhaps I would save them for later, when I could truly savor them with a cup of tea as a special evening treat. I closed the box and placed it on the counter, smiling at this thoughtful gift from my son. My phone rang as I was enjoying my solitary birthday lunch. I expected it to be James finally calling with birthday wishes, but the screen showed Linda's name instead. I hesitated before answering, not particularly wanting to speak with her today, of all days. Linda began with perfunctory birthday wishes before launching into a detailed account of her latest health concerns. She had recently been diagnosed with high cholesterol and was lamenting the strict diet her doctor had prescribed. I remember her exact words. It's just so difficult, Sophia. No sweets at all for 6 weeks. You know how I adore my desserts. Walter brought home a pie yesterday, and I couldn't even have a single bite. It's absolute torture. As she continued to complain, a sudden impulse came over me. I glanced at the box of cookies sitting on my counter and made a split-second decision. Linda, I have something that might cheer you up. James sent me some homemade cookies for my birthday. I haven't tried them yet, but they look delicious. Would you like me to bring them over? There was a pause on the other end of the line. Oh, I couldn't possibly take your birthday gift, she replied, though I detected a note of interest in her voice. Please, I insisted. I shouldn't be eating sweets either at my age, and it would make me happy to share. After a few more protests, Linda accepted my offer. I told her I would drive over within the hour, ignoring the small voice in my head, questioning my decision. Why was I giving away James' thoughtful gift? Was it genuine generosity or something else? The drive to Linda's house took about 30 minutes. She lives in an upscale neighborhood with manicured lawns and large houses set back from the street. Her 2-story colonial always makes my modest ranch house seem shabby by comparison. I parked in her circular driveway next to the fountain that burbles year-round. Linda answered the door, wearing designer loungewear, her hair perfectly styled despite her claims of feeling under the weather. Her eyes lit up at the sight of the cookie box in my hands. "Sophia, you really shouldn't have," she said, already reaching for the package. I handed it over with a smile. "James sent them for my birthday, but I wanted you to enjoy them. I know how hard it must be to give up your sweets completely." Linda opened the box, right there in the entryway, exclaiming over the beautiful cookies. "Oh, these look professional. Did James buy them from that fancy bakery downtown?" I shook my head. "No, the card said they were homemade. Maybe Allison made them." Linda selected a chocolate chip cookie and took a delicate bite, closing her eyes in apparent bliss. "These are absolutely divine. Are you sure you don't want to keep them?" She asked this while taking a second cookie, her diet apparently forgotten. "I am positive," I replied. "I have to watch my figure too. Besides, it makes me happy to see you enjoying them." Linda invited me in for tea, and I accepted, though our conversations are usually stilted and formal. As we sat in her expensively furnished living room, she continued to praise the cookies while subtly reminding me of her superior position in our grandchildren's lives. "Emma just loved the ballet lessons we got her for her birthday," she mentioned casually. "She has such natural grace. Walter and I are thinking of paying for private lessons in addition to her regular class." I nodded, thinking of the hand-knitted sweater and books I had given Emma for her birthday. My gifts always seemed inadequate next to the extravagances Linda and Walter provided. After finishing our tea, I made my excuses and headed home. As I drove, a surprising sense of satisfaction settled over me. For once I had been the generous one, the one making a sacrifice. Linda would have to acknowledge my selflessness, perhaps even mention it to James and Allison. Yet as evening fell and I sat alone in my quiet house, a nagging doubt began to grow. Had I really given away the cookies out of generosity? Or was it something else? A desire to appear superior? A passive-aggressive response to feeling forgotten on my birthday? I pushed these uncomfortable thoughts aside. James rarely ate sweets anyway. He was always watching his weight, conscious of his family history of heart problems. He probably wouldn't even ask about the cookies. And if he did, he would appreciate my generosity toward his mother-in-law. As I prepared for bed that night, I felt reasonably content with how my birthday had turned out. True, I hadn't seen my son or grandchildren, but the cookies had been a thoughtful gift. and by sharing them with Linda, I had transformed a solitary pleasure into an act of kindness. I drifted off to sleep that night, with no inkling of the storm that was about to break over my well-intentioned gesture. The next morning started like any other. I had my usual breakfast of toast and coffee while reading the newspaper. Around 10, my phone rang displaying James' name. My heart lifted. He was calling to make sure I had received the cookies and to wish me a happy birthday again. "Hi, Mom," he said when I answered, his voice warm. "Happy birthday again. How was your day yesterday?" I told him about my quiet celebrations, the special lunch I had made for myself, and the book I had started reading, a gift to myself from the bookstore. "That sounds nice," he replied. "So, how are the cookies? Did you get a chance to try them yet?" This was the moment when everything changed, though I had no idea at the time. I answered casually, almost proudly. "Oh, the cookies! They looked lovely, but I actually gave them to your mother-in-law. Linda loves sweets so much, and she was just telling me about her new diet restrictions. I thought it would cheer her up." The silence that followed was so profound, I wondered if we had been disconnected. "James, are you still there?" When he finally spoke, his voice was barely controlled. "You did what?" "I gave the cookies to Linda." I repeated, a note of uncertainty creeping into my voice. "Why was that wrong?" "You did," what he shouted, his voice so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "Mom, those weren't just any cookies." The shock in his voice made my stomach tighten. I had clearly made a terrible mistake, though I couldn't imagine why a box of cookies would provoke such a reaction. James' voice shook as he explained. "Those cookies were special, Mom. They were made from Grandma's recipe, the one she used to make for you when you were little. I found her handwritten recipe card in that old box you gave me last year." My mind flashed to the box of family memorabilia I had passed on to James, wanting him to have some connection to his heritage. It had contained photographs, letters, and yes, my mother's collection of recipe cards written in her distinctive flowing script. "I spent weeks perfecting that recipe." James continued, his words tumbling out rapidly now. "Emma helped me. We wanted to get it exactly right. We made batch after batch until they tasted just like I remembered from when I was a kid, when you used to make them for my birthdays." A cold wave of realization washed over me. The ginger cookies hadn't just resembled my mother's recipe. They were her recipe, lovingly recreated by my son and granddaughter as a special gift for me. I tried to recover quickly. James the First had no idea. The card just said they were homemade. It didn't mention anything about being Grandma's recipe. "Because it was supposed to be a surprise," he exclaimed. "Emma was so excited about it. She kept saying, 'Daddy, Grandma is going to be so happy when she tastes Granny Eleanor's cookies again.' We took pictures of the whole process to show you." Guilt flooded through me as I imagined little Emma carefully helping her father measure ingredients, her face lit with excitement at the special surprise they were creating. And I had given their labor of love away without a second thought. "I am so sorry," I said, my voice small. "I didn't realize. I can go get them back from Linda." James' bitter laugh cut through me. "Too late for that. She just posted on Facebook about the delicious cookies her thoughtful former mother-in-law brought her, with pictures. She already ate half the box." Former mother-in-law. The phrase stung, a pointed reminder that Linda and I weren't actually related by blood or current marriage, just connected through our shared grandchildren. "I don't understand why you would do this," James continued, his initial anger giving way to hurt. "Why would you give away a birthday gift from us, especially to Linda of all people?" His question forced me to examine my motivations, something I wasn't entirely prepared to do. Why had I given the cookies away? Was it really generosity? Or had there been something else, something less admirable behind my gesture? She called right after they were delivered, I explained weakly. She was complaining about her diet, and I just thought, you thought, what, that my gift wasn't worth keeping, that Linda deserved it more than you. James' voice cracked slightly. Do you have any idea how much time and effort went into those cookies? The conversation spiraled from there. Long-buried grievances surfaced. James accused me of always trying to compete with Linda, of making him feel guilty for spending time with Allison's family. I defended myself, pointing out how often he canceled plans with me when Linda's family events came up. You don't understand what it's like being alone while you all have family dinners without me, I said, tears beginning to flow. I gave her the cookies because I wanted to be generous for once, to be the bigger person. By giving away something that was meant for you, James responded. Something that represented our family history, a connection between you, me, and Emma. How does that make any sense? Mom. I had no good answer. As the argument continued, I became increasingly defensive, unable to simply admit my mistake and apologize properly. James' growing frustration was palpable. I need some time, he finally said, his voice tired. This isn't just about cookies. It's about feeling like you don't value what I give you, what we share. Of course I value it, I protested. You're my son. I love you more than anything. Then why does it feel like you're more concerned with one-upping Linda than appreciating what you have? He asked quietly. Look, I need to go. We'll talk later. The call ended abruptly, leaving me staring at my phone in shock. I immediately tried calling back, but the call went straight to voicemail. I sent a text apologizing again, explaining that I truly hadn't understood the significance of the gift. No response. Later that afternoon, I received a brief text from Allison. Just wanted to let you know, we're going to skip this weekend's visit. James needs some space right now. The kids send their love. The planned visit had been my opportunity to give the grandchildren their Easter baskets. Now that too was taken away, collateral damage from my thoughtless action. As the reality of what I had done sank in, I began searching through my kitchen drawers, looking for my mother's old recipes that I hadn't passed on to James. I found a few, but not the special ginger cookie recipe. That one had gone to James in the box of family mementos. I sat at my kitchen table that evening, surrounded by faded recipe cards and photographs, the magnitude of my mistake becoming increasingly clear. The cookies hadn't just been a casual birthday gift. They had been a connection to my mother, to James, childhood, to our shared history as a family, and I had given them away to impress a woman who had never shown me real kindness or respect. What kind of grandmother gives away a gift made with love by her grandchild? What kind of mother dismisses her son's efforts so casually? The questions echoed in my mind as I faced the uncomfortable truth about my actions. A full week passed without a word from James. I called each day, leaving increasingly desperate voicemail messages. I texted apologies that received no response. The silence was deafening, worse than any argument we had ever had. Sleep became elusive. Night after night I would lie awake, replaying the phone call in my mind, thinking of all the things I should have said differently. By day, I moved through my routine like a ghost, the guilt and worry constant companions. On the 8th day, I decided I needed to take more direct action. If James wouldn't speak to me, perhaps I could at least recover what remained of the cookies from Linda. It was a foolish hope, but I needed to do something, anything, to begin making amends. I drove to Linda's house without calling, first afraid she would refuse to see me. When she opened the door, her surprise quickly gave way to a knowing smile that made my skin crawl. "Sophia, what an unexpected pleasure," she said, her tone suggesting it was anything but. "Do come in." I followed her into the immaculate living room, declining her offer of tea. "I have come about the cookies," I said without preamble. "The ones I gave you last week." Linda arranged herself elegantly on her sofa. "Oh, yes, they were absolutely delicious. So thoughtful of you to share." "I need them back," I blurted out. "Or whatever is left of them. They were special. I didn't realize." Linda raised one perfectly shaped eyebrow. "Need them back. But Sophia, I ate most of them already. And I shared some with my bridge club. They were quite impressed that my daughter-in-law's mother would give away her birthday gift to me." She emphasized the words daughter-in-law subtly, another reminder of our tenuous connection. "James made those cookies using my mother's recipe," I explained, my voice tight. "Emma helped him. It was meant to be a special gift connecting 3 generations." Something flickered in Linda's eyes, a momentary recognition of the significance quickly replaced by cool amusement. "Well, that explains why they tasted homemade. Not quite professional quality, but charming in their rustic way." Her dismissal of James and Emma's efforts ignited a spark of anger in me. This wasn't just about my mistake anymore. It was about respecting my family, our traditions. "They weren't meant to be professional, Linda," I said, my voice gaining strength. "They were meant to be meaningful, a connection to our family history." Linda sighed dramatically. "Oh, Sophia, you always were so sentimental about these things. Surely James can make you another batch if they mean that much to you, though I gather he is quite upset with you at the moment." The casual way she referenced my son's anger suggested she knew exactly what had happened. Had James called her? Had she spoken to Allison? "My son is not speaking to me because I gave you those cookies," I said. "I made a terrible mistake." Linda examined her manicured nails. "Well, we all make mistakes as mothers, don't we? Though I can't imagine giving away something my child made, especially for me." She looked up, meeting my eyes. "But then, perhaps that's the difference in how we value family." Her words struck like physical blows. The implication was clear: I was a bad mother. I had failed at the one role that defined much of my life. Something snapped inside me. For years I had tolerated Linda's subtle digs, her competitive behavior, her constant reminders of her superior resources and position in our shared grandchildren's lives. But in that moment, facing the consequences of my own poor judgment, I found I could no longer remain silent. "Do you enjoy this, Linda?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. "Does it make you happy to see my relationship with my son damaged?" Her eyes widened in apparently genuine surprise. "I have no idea what you're talking about. For 7 years I have watched you undermine me. At every turn I continued, unable to stop now that the dam had broken. Every gift I give the children is followed by something bigger and better from you. Every tradition I try to establish is overshadowed by your elaborate plans. You even scheduled Noah's birthday party last year during the weekend. He was supposed to visit me." Linda stood up, affronted. "That is simply not true. It was the only weekend the clown was available." The absurdity of her defense almost made me laugh despite the situation, but it was just one example among dozens. The competition had been relentless, and while I wasn't blameless, Linda had wielded her advantages mercilessly. "I just want to know if you have any of the cookies left," I said, finally exhausted by the confrontation. "Please, Linda, this is important to me." For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of compassion in her expression. Then she walked to her kitchen, returning with the box James had sent me. "Here," she said, holding it out. "There are 3 left." I was saving them for Walter. I accepted the nearly empty box, fighting back tears. "Thank you," I said stiffly, heading for the door. As I reached for the handle, Linda called after me. "You know, Sophia James mentions you all the time to the children. Emma has your smile, he always says. Perhaps if you spent less time feeling sorry for yourself and more time appreciating what you have, you wouldn't make such foolish mistakes." I left without responding her words, echoing in my mind. Was she right? Had I been so focused on what I lacked that I had failed to value what I had? The drive home passed in a blur. Once there, I tried calling James again, this time leaving a tearful voicemail describing my confrontation with Linda and begging him to call me back. When hours passed with no response, I tried a different approach. I called Allison instead. We had always had a cordial, if somewhat distant, relationship. She answered on the third ring, her voice cautious. "Sophia, is everything all right?" "No," I admitted. "I made a terrible mistake, Allison. I need to make it right with James, but he won't talk to me." There was a long pause before she responded. "Hess really hurt Sophia. Those cookies meant a lot to him." "I know that now," I said. "I didn't realize when I gave them away. Can you help me understand why they were so important?" Allison sighed. "James spent weeks on this project. He found his grandmother's recipe card and was so excited to recreate it for you. He said you used to talk about those cookies all the time, how they reminded you of your childhood, of your mother." Fresh guilt washed over me. I had mentioned those cookies often, especially around the holidays, sharing stories of my mother, baking them in our small kitchen, the whole house filled with the scent of ginger and molasses. "Emma was so proud to help," Allison continued. "She measured all the ingredients herself. James taught her how to roll the dough into perfect balls. They made 5 batches before James decided they were right. He kept saying, 'I want them to taste exactly like Mom remembers.'" Tears streamed down my face as I imagined them working together in their kitchen, my granddaughter learning family traditions from her father, both of them thinking of me. "I didn't know," I whispered. "The card just said they were homemade. I thought they were just regular cookies." "James wanted it to be a surprise," Allison explained. "He was going to call you later that day to see if you recognized the recipe. Emma was so excited to hear your reaction." The full weight of my thoughtlessness crushed me. Not only had I given away a precious gift, but I had robbed my granddaughter of the joy of my reaction to her hard work. "What can I do?" I asked desperately. "How do I fix this?" Allison was quiet for a moment. "Give him some time, Sophia. And when you're ready to talk, maybe try to understand why you gave away his gift in the first place. Because you're right, this isn't just about cookies." After we hung up, I went to my kitchen with newfound determination. I would recreate my mother's cookies myself as a peace offering to James and Emma. I gathered what ingredients I had and began mixing, trying to remember the recipe by heart. The first batch was a disaster, too dry and overbaked. The second spread too much in the oven, creating one giant cookie instead of individual ones. By my third attempt, my kitchen was a mess of flour and spices, and I was no closer to recreating my mother's perfect cookies. As evening fell, I sat on my kitchen floor surrounded by failed attempts and finally allowed myself to cry without restraint. I had alienated my son, disappointed my granddaughter, and proven myself to be exactly the kind of petty, insecure person I had always feared I was becoming in my loneliness. The photos on my refrigerator seemed to mock me happy family moments from easier times. There was James at 10 proudly holding a fish, head caught on a rare vacation. Emma as a toddler, her face covered in birthday cake. Noah riding his first bicycle, James running alongside him. I had always prided myself on being a good mother, on raising James alone after Robert's death, on making sacrifices to give him opportunities. But in one thoughtless moment, I had damaged the relationship I'd spent a lifetime building. And for what? To impress a woman who had never respected me, to prove I could be generous, even at the cost of something precious. As I sat amid the ruins of my baking attempts, I faced the hardest truth of all this wasn't about Linda. It was about me, my insecurities, my failure to communicate my needs, and my inability to accept that my relationship with James had changed as he built his own family. The realization broke something open inside me, and I cried until there were no tears left alone on my kitchen floor, with only the memories of happier times for company. 3 days later, a knock at my door roused me from the fog of depression that had settled over me. I had barely left the house, moving mechanically through my days, calling James morning and night with no response. I opened the door to find Allison standing there with Emma beside her. Before I could speak, Emma rushed forward, wrapping her arms around my waist. "Grandma, we came to visit you." The simple joy in her voice brought fresh tears to my eyes. I looked questioningly at Allison, who gave a small nod. "I need to run some errands," she said. "I thought Emma might like to spend a few hours with you if that's all right." "Of course," I replied, barely trusting my voice. "Thank you." As Allison turned to leave, she added quietly, "This was her idea. She misses you." Once Allison had gone, Emma chattered happily about school and her dance class as I made us both hot chocolate. Her presence was like sunshine after days of rain, but an undercurrent of anxiety remained. Did she know about the cookies? Was she disappointed in me too? We settled at the kitchen table with our drinks, and Emma noticed the baking supplies still scattered across the counters. "Were you making cookies, Grandma?" she asked, eyes bright with interest. "I was trying to," I admitted, "but they didn't turn out very well." Emma tilted her head, "Like the ones me and Daddy made for your birthday." So she did know. I nodded, swallowing hard. "Yes, sweetheart, like those." Instead of the reproach I expected, Emma beamed. "I know the secret ingredient, Daddy says. That's why they were special." My curiosity was piqued despite my guilt. Secret ingredient. Emma nodded enthusiastically. "Daddy said his grandma, your mommy, put something special in her cookies, and we put it in too." "What was it?" I asked, genuinely curious now. Emma leaned forward conspiratorially. "Orange zest," Daddy said. "Most people use just ginger and molasses, but your mom always added orange zest too. He said it took us 4 tries to get it right." A memory surfaced, suddenly vivid and clear. My mother in her apron, showing me how to carefully grate the bright orange peel, explaining that this was what made our family recipe unique. How had I forgotten that detail? "Daddy has pictures," Emma continued, pulling a tablet from her backpack. "He took pictures of us making the cookies for you." She swiped through a series of photos, each one a knife to my heart. There was James in our kitchen flour on his cheek, carefully measuring spices. Emma standing on a stool, her small hands working the dough. The two of them side by side, smiling proudly at a tray of perfect cookies. "These were made just for you, Grandma," Emma said, pointing to the final image of the beautifully wrapped box. "Daddy said they would help you remember your mommy." The full significance of the gift finally hit me. James hadn't just recreated a recipe. He had given me back a piece of my mother, a connection to my past that I had been missing since her death 15 years ago. And in my thoughtlessness, I'd given it away. I don't know what came over me, but in that moment, I decided to be completely honest with my granddaughter. "Emma, I made a big mistake," I said gently. "I gave those special cookies to Mrs. Walter without knowing how important they were." Instead of judgment, Emma's face showed only confusion. "But they were your birthday present." "I know, sweetheart. It was a very wrong thing to do. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes too, even big ones." Emma considered this seriously. "Daddy says everyone makes mistakes. The important part is saying sorry and trying to do better. Out of the mouths of babes, your daddy is very wise," I said. "And I am very, very sorry." "You should tell Daddy that," Emma advised solemnly. "He seems sad." "I am trying," I admitted. "But sometimes saying sorry isn't enough. Sometimes you have to show people you're sorry by changing your behavior." Emma nodded as if this made perfect sense. "Then we should make new cookies that would show Daddy you're sorry." Her simple solution brought a smile to my face. "Perhaps we should," I agreed, "though I don't have the recipe." "I know it," Emma declared confidently. "I helped Daddy 5 times." For the next hour, Emma guided me through recreating my mother's cookie recipe, her 7-year-old instructions, surprisingly detailed. 3 teaspoons of ginger, not 2, orange zest from 1 whole orange. Chill the dough before rolling into balls. As we worked together, flour dusting both our clothes, I felt something healing inside me. This bright, generous child was giving me a second chance. I didn't deserve sharing family knowledge that had almost been lost through my actions. The cookies were in the oven when Allison returned. She stood in my kitchen doorway, taking in the scene of happy chaos. "I see you've been busy," she observed, her tone cautiously friendly. Emma ran to her mother. "We made Granny Eleanor's special cookies to show Daddy we're sorry for giving them away." Allison's eyes met mine over Emma's head. I mouthed a silent thank you, which she acknowledged with a small nod. "Actually, Emma, I am the one who is sorry," I clarified. "And these cookies are for both you and your daddy, to thank you for the beautiful gift you made me." As they prepared to leave, Allison pulled me aside while Emma gathered her things. "James is still hurt," she said quietly. "But he misses you too. He just doesn't know how to move past this." "I understand," I replied. "Would you give him a message from me?" Allison nodded. "Tell him I know now what the cookies really meant. Tell him I'm sorry not just for giving them away, but for not recognizing the love and history they represented. And tell him Emma taught me the secret ingredient both in the cookies and in life." "What's that?" Allison asked. "Forgiveness," I said simply. "Something I need to practice more with others and with myself." After they left, I carefully packed the cookies Emma and I had made, adding a handwritten note explaining what had happened that afternoon. I included a heartfelt apology and an invitation for James and his family to come for dinner whenever they were ready. As I sealed the package, I realized something important had shifted inside me. This wasn't just about cookies, or even about one thoughtless action. It was about patterns I'd established, over years' ways. I'd responded to my loneliness and insecurity that had damaged my relationships. Linda had been right about one thing. I had been so focused on what I lacked that I had failed to fully appreciate what I had. Moving forward would require more than a single apology. It would mean examining the root causes of my behavior and making real changes. That evening, I pulled out photo albums from James' childhood, remembering the joy amid the struggles, the strength we had found together. Whatever happened next, I was determined to be worthy of the love my family had shown me, even when I had failed to recognize it. 2 days after Emma's visit, My phone pinged with a text message from James. "We can come by Saturday afternoon, 4 p.m." 6 words. No mention of my apology, the cookies Emma and I had made, or his feelings about our situation. But it was a start, a small opening in the wall between us. I spent the next 3 days preparing. I cleaned every inch of my house, bought fresh flowers for the table, and planned a simple meal that included all of James and the children's favorites. I wanted everything to be perfect, though I knew that physical preparations were the least important part of what lay ahead. More significantly, I prepared myself emotionally. I wrote out everything I wanted to say to James, then revised it repeatedly, striving for honesty without defensiveness. I practiced in front of the mirror, working to find words that would convey the depth of my regret without making excuses. Saturday arrived with agonizing slowness. By 3 o'clock, I had changed my outfit 3 times and rearranged the living room furniture twice. The cookies Emma and I had made were displayed on my best plate, alongside the 3 remaining original cookies Linda had returned to me. I wanted James to see that I now understood the difference, the significance. At exactly 4, I heard cars in the driveway. Taking a deep breath, I opened the front door before they could knock, plastering what I hoped was a welcoming smile on my face. The sight of my family approaching the porch sent a wave of emotion through me, so powerful I had to grip the doorframe for support. James looked tired, his normally cheerful face serious. Allison walked beside him, one hand on his back, in a gesture of support. Emma skipped ahead while Noah hung back, sensing the tension. Grandma Emma called, running to hug me. "Did you tell Daddy about our cookies?" I hugged her tightly. "I sure did, sweetheart. Thank you for helping me." James approached slowly, stopping at the foot of my porch steps. "Hi, Mom," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "Thank you for coming," I replied, fighting to keep my voice steady. "Please come in." The next few minutes were awkward as everyone settled in the living room. Noah, usually boisterous, sat quietly beside Allison, while Emma chattered about a project at school, seemingly determined to fill the uncomfortable silence. I served drinks and snacks, moving mechanically through the motions of hospitality, while acutely aware of James watching me, his expression unreadable. Finally, Noah broke the tension in the way only a 5-year-old could. "Grandma, did you really give our cookies to mean Mrs. Walter?" James started to correct him, but I held up a hand. "It's all right," I said. "Yes, Noah, I did. And it was a very thoughtless thing to do. I hurt your daddy's feelings and Emma's too. I am very sorry." Noah considered this seriously. "Daddy says you didn't know they were special." "That's true," I acknowledged. "But I should have appreciated any gift from your daddy, whether I knew it was special or not." My grandson nodded sagely. "When I give away toys Mommy buys me, I get in big trouble." A surprised laugh escaped James, the first crack in his serious demeanor. "Out of the mouths of babes," he murmured. I smiled gratefully at Noah. "You're right. And I'm in big trouble, too." Emma tugged at her father's sleeve. "Can Grandma show us her garden now? She promised last time she would let us pick strawberries." James hesitated, then nodded. "You two go ahead. Stay where we can see you from the window." As the children raced outside, an awkward silence fell over the living room. Allison stood up. "I'll go watch them," she said tactfully. "You two should talk." Once we were alone, I turned to James, all my carefully rehearsed speeches disappearing from my mind. Instead, I spoke from my heart. "I am so sorry, James. More sorry than I can express." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I know you are, Mom, but I still don't understand why you did it." I took a deep breath. "I think we should talk in the kitchen," I said. "Please." James followed me, his confusion evident. When we entered the kitchen, I gestured to the 2 plates of cookies on the counter. "These 3 are what Linda returned to me," I explained, pointing to the first plate. "And these are the ones Emma helped me make, using what she remembered of your recipe." James stared at the cookies, then at me. "Emma told you about the orange zest." I nodded. "She said it was the secret ingredient." And she was right. It was my mother's special touch, something I had forgotten until Emma reminded me. I picked up one of the original cookies. "James, when these arrived, I just saw cookies. Beautiful homemade cookies, but still, just a birthday treat. I had no idea they were a connection to my mother, to your childhood, to our family history." James leaned against the counter. "The card just said, 'Happy Birthday.' I wanted you to taste them first to see if you recognized the recipe." I should have appreciated them, regardless, I admitted. Any gift from you and the children should have been treasured. Instead, I gave them away the first chance I got. "To Linda of all people," James added, a hint of his earlier anger returning. "You know how she is, Mom. You know she doesn't even like you." The blunt truth stung, but I couldn't deny it. "Yes, I know, and that's what I need to explain. I didn't give her those cookies out of generosity. Not really." "Why then?" I sat down at the kitchen table, gesturing for James to join me. This is difficult to admit, but I think I was trying to prove something. To show Linda I could be generous, to make myself feel superior in some small way. To compensate for all the times I've felt less than her, less important in your lives. James' expression softened slightly. "Mom, please let me finish," I said gently. "For years I've been feeling increasingly isolated. As you've built your own family, I understand that's natural, but it hurts sometimes. Instead of telling you directly how I felt, I let resentment build. I started seeing Linda as competition, rather than simply another grandmother who loves your children." "Linda doesn't make it easy," James acknowledged. "She can be pretty competitive herself." "Yes, but I should have handled it differently," I admitted. "When she called on my birthday, complaining about her diet, something in me saw an opportunity to be the bigger person, to make a sacrifice that would make me look good. I never stopped to think about what I was giving away because I was too focused on how the gesture would make me appear." James was quiet for a long moment. "I should have told you what the cookies meant," he finally said. "I wanted it to be a surprise, but I should have explained." "No," I shook my head firmly. "This wasn't your fault. A birthday gift shouldn't come with instructions on how to appreciate it. The problem was with me, not with how you gave the gift." I reached across the table, not quite touching his hand, but close. "James, when your father died, you became the center of my world. I poured everything into raising you into our relationship, and then you grew up as you were supposed to. You found Allison, started your own family. That's exactly what should have happened." James nodded slowly. But I never fully adjusted," I confessed. "I never developed enough of an independent life, enough other relationships, to balance the natural shift in our dynamic. Instead, I became increasingly insecure about my place in your life, especially compared to Allison's family." A look of understanding crossed James' face. "That's why you get so upset when we change plans or spend holidays with the Walters." "Yes," I admitted. "And instead of talking to you about it, I let it fester. I started acting out in subtle ways, like giving away your gift to prove some point to Linda and to myself." James finally reached for my hand. "I had no idea you felt so isolated, Mom. You always seemed so independent, so capable." I gave a small laugh. "I wanted you to see me that way. I didn't want to be a burden or make you feel guilty for living your own life. But in trying to appear strong, I never let you know when I was struggling." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of years of miscommunication between us. "I can't promise you'll never make mistakes again," I said finally. "But I can promise to be more honest about my feelings, to talk to you directly instead of acting out. And I can promise to work on building a fuller life for myself, so I don't place too much pressure on our relationship." James squeezed my hand. "And I can promise to be more sensitive to how you're feeling, to make sure you know you're still an important part of our family. The kids adore you, Mom, and so do I. Even when I give away your carefully crafted cookies," I asked, attempting a small joke. He smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from him in weeks. Well, maybe not in those moments, but yes, even then. From outside came the sound of children's laughter. We both turned to look through the window watching as Emma showed Noah how to find the ripest strawberries hidden under the leaves. "Would you help me make a fresh batch of your grandmother's cookies?" I asked. This time I promised not to give them away. James stood up, rolling up his sleeves. "I'd like that, Mom. And this time he'll write down the recipe so you can't forget." As we gathered ingredients side by side, I felt the first real hope that our relationship could not only heal, but grow stronger through this difficult experience. The cookies that had caused such pain might yet become a symbol of reconciliation, a new tradition to connect the generations of our family. 6 months have passed since what my grandchildren now call the Great Cookie Catastrophe. What began as a thoughtless mistake has transformed into an unexpected catalyst for growth and healing in our family. James and I have established a new tradition. On the first Sunday of each month, he brings Emma and Noah to my house for what we call our cookie connection. We bake together, trying new recipes sometimes, but always including at least one batch of my mother's ginger cookies with the secret orange zest. As we work, we share stories about our family history, ensuring that the children will carry these memories and traditions forward. My relationship with Linda has changed too, though not in the way I might have expected. After several conversations with James and Allison, I realized that continuing to view her as competition was harmful to everyone, especially the grandchildren. Instead, I've established clearer boundaries. I no longer try to impress her or seek her approval. When she makes pointed comments, I respond with polite neutrality rather than internal resentment. Surprisingly, this approach has resulted in a more respectful, if still distant, relationship. Linda seems to have less interest in needling me now that I no longer react. At Emma's birthday party last month, we even collaborated on the decorations without a single passive-aggressive comment between us. More importantly, I've taken concrete steps to address the loneliness that led to my poor judgment. The cooking classes I started taking at the community center have introduced me to a group of women in similar life stages, several of whom have become genuine friends. We meet weekly for coffee, occasionally attend concerts together, and have even planned a weekend trip to the coast next month. I've also become more direct about my needs and feelings with James and Allison. When I feel overlooked or set aside, I now express those feelings calmly rather than allowing resentment to build. Sometimes, just acknowledging the emotion is enough to dispel it. Other times, we find compromises that work for everyone. James has made changes too. He calls more regularly, not out of obligation, but genuine interest in my life. He makes a point of bringing the children for one-on-one visits, creating space for me to develop individual relationships with Emma and Noah outside of larger family gatherings. The cookie incident taught me several profound lessons that continue to shape my approach to relationships. I learned that true generosity comes from love, not from a desire to appear giving or to one-up someone else. I discovered that unspoken expectations and resentments poison even the closest relationships. Most importantly, I realized that it's never too late to change patterns that no longer serve us. Last week was my 69th birthday. James and his family came for dinner, bringing a homemade cake and thoughtfully chosen gifts. But the most precious moment came when Emma presented me with a small cookbook she had created with her father's help. Inside were handwritten recipe cards, including her great-grandmother's, ginger cookies, complete with charming illustrations and notes about our family history. As I held that book, I was struck by how differently I approached this birthday. Instead of focusing on what was missing or comparing my celebration to others, I fully appreciated the love surrounding me. The gift wasn't just the cookbook, but the recognition that our family story continues, that I remain an essential part of its unfolding. The painful lessons of last year's cookie disaster have become, ironically, one of the greatest gifts of my later years. By confronting my insecurities and changing my behavior, I've discovered a richer, more authentic way of relating to my family and to myself. I still make mistakes. We all do. But now I understand that acknowledgement and genuine change are the pathways to healing and growth. What matters isn't that we stumble, but that we have the courage to get up again, to face our shortcomings with honesty, and to choose a better way forward. As I look toward the future, I feel a sense of peace that had eluded me for many years. My relationship with James is stronger for having weathered this storm. My connections with my grandchildren continue to deepen. And I am developing an identity and community beyond my role as mother and grandmother, something I had neglected for far too long. What have you learned from the mistakes in your relationships? Have you ever had a misunderstanding that ultimately brought you closer to someone you love? Share your stories in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey with me, please like and subscribe for more real-life lessons from someone who's still learning even at 69. Thank you for listening, and remember, it's never too late to bake a fresh batch of understanding.